Excellent communicators often make excellent marketers, excellent salespeople, and excellent leaders. And one of the reasons for that is because they can actually apply influence to the people they're talking to, whether it be one on one as sales, one to many as marketing, or one to your organization as a leader. One huge aspect of this is your ability to communicate and obviously have influence. So in this video today, I wanted to break down a few different things that I have done for myself to become a better communicator. When I first got into this business, I was a good salesperson and I didn't really know anything about marketing. And I certainly didn't know anything really about leadership outside of like sports through high school and college. So I'm going to break down a few things that I've done in my professional career. There's three major things that I feel have made me a significantly better communicator in all three different aspects. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian Stubbs. I'm a team leader, owner of Onyx Homes. We've sold almost 1,000 homes for almost $900 million in sales volume just since the year 2020. And we are on pace to grow again significantly this year, a big part because of this. So the whole concept here is being clear in your communication versus being clever or creative or whatever else. Now, earlier in my career, especially when I started doing advertising and marketing, I always thought I had to think this new, clever, fancy, shiny, whatever. And the reality was you have to strip away in order to make something simpler. So if I go to explain something and if I can't explain it to a third grader, I probably actually don't understand it very well. And if you're a salesperson and you don't understand it, it's going to be hard to sell it. And if you don't understand what it is, it's going to be hard to market. And if you don't know how to lead people, or manage anybody, it's going to be hard to lead people. So let me break down the three different things, and then we'll go into detail on all of these. So the first one is I actually started writing an email newsletter to our database about 4 years ago. So I've been doing this for a long time now. I write it every single week to our consumer list. So I've been doing that for 4 years. I've been writing an agent-facing email for about the last 2.5, maybe 3 years, every single week. So that's 2 emails every single week. And what I actually do is I write these in the website. This is kind of confusing, but type into your browser hemingwayapp.com. Yes, Hemingway app. It is not an app. It is a website. And what it actually does, and we'll put it up on the screen here, it actually grades how well you're writing, or rather how clearly you're writing. It'll tell you at what grade level you're writing. It'll highlight different sentences, either in yellow if it's kind of confusing, red if it's really a heavy sentence and you definitely need to trim it up. It'll tell you different types of words to use or to not use, more importantly, to make you a better writer. Now, therefore, if you are writing it, you are also going to be able to think clearer, and you're going to be more than likely able to communicate clear via your words you use. So I have been doing this now for several years, and something that I have realized was when I was early on writing these, I would naturally write at like a 9th or a 12th, like somewhere between 9th and 12th grade. So high school let's say high school level writing. And yeah, pretty much everybody that I talked to went to high school, at least that I know of, but it was hard to understand and it's hard to read. And the reality is it'd be like reading a textbook versus reading a children's book. Which of those two are going to be easier to comprehend the story? Are you going to get maybe more information out of the textbook? Probably. But if you're getting the point across, a children's book could do. For example, this whole video can be summed up on being clear over being clever. You're going to be able to deliver your message simpler and in fewer words. If you can, I don't say dumb it down, but just simplify. So that was number one. So I actually write all of my emails. I try to get to a 3rd grade reading level and like max of a 5th grade reading level. And the reality is what actually ends up happening is it's just easier to understand. Now, technically more people can understand it because it's lower language levels, but it also makes the person who has a higher level education, it just doesn't take as much brain power to understand what you're actually saying. So that's step number one. Step number two is speaking in a way, and writing is the same thing. I think these are almost one and the same. But this is the idea of subtraction is addition. So getting your point across when you're talking to somebody specifically, getting your point across in 50% fewer words. So even just me saying that right there, like I probably could have retake this and condensed that down and just say, better communicator you are, you get your point across in fewer words. And that also requires less brain power for you to understand as the person watching this. But if you're in a sales situation, imagine if you had a script that was 10 pages long versus somebody that had a 2-sentence script and it delivered the same point. Which salesperson is going to be more effective? In marketing, what if I had to hand you a textbook versus if I just showed you a postcard and both got the same point across? Or you get the point. How can you deliver the message and get the exact same amount of value with 50% fewer words? And this is something you're going to have to continue to work on, especially if you're just talking to someone. Oftentimes, figuring out and pausing before you start talking is the best way to do it as a salesperson. This is something I learned very early in my career in sales, was say very little and leave more room for pauses so that the consumer can actually process what you just said. A lot of times salespeople get this crazy urge of like, if there's one instance of silence, it's the end of the world. And especially if you just finished a pitch and you ask them, so, hey, what do you think? And if they take 2 seconds to process, most salespeople will just start spewing nonsense, adding all kinds of extra new words and complexity and whatever to the situation, which is likely only going to hurt the sale. When the reality is the prospect might have just needed 5 seconds to think if it sounded good or not. So step number 1, when you're writing, write down in ideally like a 3rd to 5th grade reading level. Ideally what you do is you just lower your reading level or your writing level from whatever you are doing. That's the target that I shoot for, is 3rd or 5th grade. Now, one thing I often will get pushback on somebody that has not gone through this exercise is, Christian, well, I don't want to sound dumb. And you can go through my content, and I wrote this email. I basically wrote this video script, if you will, as an email at a 3rd grade reading level. So if you think I sound dumb, then you're probably right. If you don't think I sound dumb, I am probably talking at a 3rd grade, if not lower, reading level. So I have just trained myself that I don't even hardly need to use the Hemingway app anymore, because I've trained myself to write simpler. Versus in the beginning, I would have to rewrite everything a ton because I was naturally writing it too complicated. So that was step number 1. Step number 2 is, how can you get your point across with fewer words? Think of subtraction is addition. You're going to make it better by doing less. There's a lot of lessons in there in business. Number 3 is, have a goal you're trying to accomplish before writing, having a conversation, or starting a marketing piece. For example, when I was writing this email newsletter earlier today, I had the goal of just straight up provide value. I had no call to action in this. I don't have that. I don't have a call to action in this video, other than maybe you can like and subscribe the video. But set the goal before you actually start making the content. And the reality here is, you're just going to get much clearer transition from advertising or value to your actual call to action when you do it. Or if you're adding value, you don't feel like, oh man, I forgot to ask them to give me their information or whatever. Like, getting a clear goal for what you're trying to accomplish out in the beginning. Now, here's a pro tip, especially for the leadership bucket, is if you're going to have hard conversations with somebody, say that immediately in the conversation. This will also allow you to say fewer words and likely to say them simpler by getting it out front. For example, if I'm going to have a conversation with an agent that is maybe not getting fired, but like we have an unfortunate circumstance or a situation that we need to talk about, we will start that conversation with, hey, this is not going to be an easy conversation. Just for the record, you're not getting fired, but this isn't going to be a fun conversation for either one of us. That way they can be braced for like, oh man, I better be like, I need to focus. I need to like, their heart rate will probably go up, but they can be assured that like, hey, I'm not getting fired in this conversation. So that will allow them to actually understand and be able to retain and listen to the conversation, because you've probably been in this position before where maybe it's a client, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's whatever. The whole conversation, all you're thinking of like, am I getting fired? Is this client firing me? Is this person canceling their listing? Is this person whatever? But if you start the conversation with, hey, that's not happening, but it's still going to be uncomfortable. Or if, again, here's leadership. If you're talking to an employee that maybe you are going to fire, say that. Say, hey, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation. And to be clear, depending on how this conversation goes, it might end in termination or it might not. Just depends on what happens here. So this is not going to be an easy conversation for either of us. Sound good? Cool, let's get into it. And that just allows for clear communication throughout. And frankly, it allows you to see how they react to just that information right off the bat. So number 3 is have a goal for what you're trying to accomplish right off of the bat. So if I'm making a marketing piece, if I'm going to send an email newsletter, if I'm going to create a social media post, if I'm going to make a YouTube video, I'm going to try to decide if is this value or is this me trying to add value so that I can have a call to action in here, which there's nothing wrong with that. You just want to make sure you lead with that. You don't want to just throw something in nonchalant, half-assed, half thought through at the very end. Now, ask yourself this question is how can you become a better communicator? Ask yourself the question, how can I become a better communicator? How can I write at a 3rd grade reading level? I advise you to practice on Hemingway app. Get your point across in 50% of the words. And number 3 is have a goal for every conversation you have. If you do this as a salesperson, you will be amazed at how well your sales will improve. If you do this in your advertising, your marketing, you'll be surprised at how many more leads you generate. And if you do this as a leader, it is going to be the most profound because you will see a dramatic improvement in the people that you work with. Now, leadership could be a mentor on a team. It could be an agent that other agents look up to, or you could be a team leader, broker owner, CEO, CFO, COO, whatever. You probably lead somebody. So anyway, those are the 3 different ways to communicate clear. And just remember, addition through subtraction. Anyway, hope you found this valuable. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.